The moon landing controversy will never get old to me. I absolutely love the debate, and I've seen a ton of evidence. I've seen close-up pictures of the moon lander and people breaking down why it looks like it's made out of tinfoil and paper towel, cardboard tubes, and things like that. And the most suspicious things to me are the fact that we are currently trying to return to the moon in 2026, I think, and we were talking about 2020, but we couldn't do that. Well, I guess for other reasons, maybe. But we don't have the telemetry data from the original mission. Supposedly we flew, I don't know, several missions to the moon. I'm not an expert on how many missions were flown, but I know it was several. Um, the Apollo missions are like, I don't know. I guess I should look it up. 9. 9 missions. So they don't have the telemetry data, and we're also studying how to get through the Van Allen radiation belt, which is the most challenging aspect of getting to the moon. Once you get outside the magnetosphere around the Earth, you have to deal with high amounts of radiation. And they tried to shield the craft supposedly because it can not only fry electronics but also kill you. Um, so the claim is that we had this all worked out. We had 9 missions. You got the telemetry data, you got the courses that you plotted and how you got there, and all kinds of scientific data to go along with it. Radiation, dosimetry, all that stuff supposedly all there. And yet we're having somehow it got lost. That's the claim. Because it's like, oh, we'll never need that again. Never go back to the moon for sure. Um, And so we're trying to figure out how to get through the radiation belt, and we're also having to redo all the basic work that was supposedly already done. I mean, I've seen a woman standing next to a stack of paperwork saying she calculated all the data that brought us to the moon by hand. Okay, well, what exactly is that data, and why are we having to redo it all over again if we've supposedly already done this? We already nailed it. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why this conspiracy, just like many others, will never die until they give us a solid explanation or until they stop with this computer generated, even now, computer generated questionable footage. NASA is doctoring almost all images that are released. There's a whole other thing about artifacts on the surface of Mars that they refuse to follow up and investigate on, and this has been going on for years. So there's just so much that is suspect about NASA, the information they put out, and their claimed abilities versus what they can actually do with humans when you hold them to task. Joe Rogan's gonna get into it though, because he was a staunch denier until Eddie got taken off the show, and then he rolled back a lot of the conspiracy stuff. And my suspicion is that conspiracy stuff is really fun, but as you get big enough, the fact that a lot of conspiracy things are true, you start to upset a lot of people. And if you want to continue to have a profitable business, you need to start to shut your mouth and watch what you say, or bad things happen to you. I think we've all seen that.
All I'm saying is when I look at all of it, when I look at the photographic evidence, or I look at the fact that we haven't been back since 1972, when I look at the fact that no humans except the Apollo astronauts have ever gone through the Van Allen radiation belt, the fact that no one's even done a flyby around the moon since then, it seems weird to me. When I look at the press conference and I see Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins nervous and weird and obviously like being deceptive after they came back, I go, what is that? I look at all that stuff. Now, when I look at that video and some of the video that Sebro has of them faking the distance between the Earth and the Moon when they're shooting the Moon, or the Earth rather, through a circular window in the lunar module, and they have the windows blacked checked out. They're pretending that it's deep space. They're saying that they're 130,000 miles out, and then you see them pull the window curtains down or the shade, whatever they have covering up with the windows, and you see that they're actually in near-Earth orbit. That makes me curious. When I look at the photographs and I see intersecting shadows. Now, I'm no photographic expert. I don't know anything about the moon really except stuff that I've read on the internet. I'm no scientist. But when I see intersecting shadows that seem to show some sort of a different light source or more than one light source, it looks odd to me. When I see that those crosshairs aren't over all the images, it looks cut and cropped to me. When I look at some of the photographs of the moon, I have this gigantic coffee table book, and it's all, a NASA book, and it's beautiful pictures of the moon and all these different photographs. Well, when I look at some of them, they look obviously fake. They look cut and cropped.
No.
So supposedly the C on the rock, it's common for movie sets to mark props with the letter or some sort of indication of where they went, so for tracking purposes. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, some of these photos, you start to look at this and you're like, this traveled through space and then landed on the moon and then took back off. Okay. And then if we get a shot with the rover sitting there, that thing is ridiculous too. We brought a moon rover up there with us that could go, like, how far? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like a lot of work. And then I don't know if we ever reused any assets. I don't think that we did, so it's just, there's a lot of suspicious stuff, including the fact that even Kubrick had a few suspicious kind of things that people claim are implied in The Shining about the fact that he was involved in this project to some degree.
Human being ever since the Apollo astronauts has gone more than 400 miles up.
Yeah, this is a good point, too.
That's about right, yeah.
That's ridiculous. 260,000 miles there and back, and the best they can do since 1972 is 400 miles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, while you're saying it's ridiculous because you can't believe it, I think it's ridiculous because I can believe it very well.
But it's not like they're not spending money.
So they're saying the lunar sky was solid black, right? Wrong. Subtraction of yellow and blue from the chroma scale reveals that the studio lighting representing the sun is reflecting off of a background. So there's that. I don't know. This is beyond me. I don't know how to, at this point this could be just pure Photoshop. I don't know.
And they keep talking about going back, but they talk about going back in 2020. Why go back in 2020 when you could just... That's the other problem. They don't have the telemetry data from the Apollo 11. Isn't that like the most important data? Isn't that like the most important thing? A huge technological achievement. They landed a man on the moon, brought him back, and they're missing the telemetry data? 14,000 something reels?
They're missing a lot of that stuff was not,
because you can't fake it. You can't fake the telemetry data.
One of the things that's most irritating about this conspiracy theory for someone like me is that a lot of this stuff is really subtle and complicated. And
14,000 reels of telemetry data for the most technological achievement in human history that's not stored in the Smithsonian Institute. It's not stored in NASA vault. It's not labeled. It's not under lock and key. It's not in a gold vault. There's nothing weird about that.
I can't say anything about 14,000 reels. I don't know the number, and so
yeah, it's like 13,000 or 14,000. I forget. Either way, it's more than 100, which is crazy.
Lost.
You've lost more. If you lost more than 100 of the telemetry data, that's insane.
A lot of the stuff was owned by contractors. It was shelved. They weren't paid to store it, and it went
NASA.
away.
It's NASA. NASA lost it. This is the hard footage.
NASA is not just NASA. NASA is civil servants. NASA is 10 different contractors. There was Northrop Grumman. There was North American.
Nice. Yeah, Grumman lost all their stuff. So did Boeing. They lost all their information too on the moon buggy, on the lunar module. They lost all that stuff.
This is
how convenient.
It's another argument brought up by conspiracy theorists. Not to me. Each one of these missions, each one of these lunar landers was different. It's not like they designed a car and then just cranked them out. they had an overall design, and then each one was different. Each one they had to note all of these changes and everything, and it was all done on paper.
I gotta tell you, Phil, I'm not done with you, bitch.
Speaking of flying through space, you don't think the moon landing is real?
Check Aldrin's accoutrement. White gloves, antenna, no wrist stripe, high boots. Dark gray gloves, no antenna, no white stripes, high boots. It's a shame that this stuff is kind of blurry. This one, dark gray gloves, antenna, question mark? Black wrist stripe, high boots. Okay, black wrist stripe. Yeah, that's same side too. No black wrist stripe. White gloves, no antenna. Right wrist not seen. No high boots. Dark gray gloves, no antenna. Possible thin wrist stripe. Yeah, it's just so hard to make it out, you know, but...
Real? No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw it on television.
Oh, you're a genius. Oh, beep that.
Okay, we'll bleep it. We'll bleep it. No, it's okay. We got
That's genius. You saw it on TV? That's awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you King Kong. I saw that on TV, too. There's an 80-foot gorilla.
So I'm curious what's the amount of time that it takes a radio signal to travel 26,000 miles. Because they had a good point there. You know, they lost contact with the ISS, but supposedly in 1969 the president's calling the moon with a desk phone. You know, like what is even real? You know, like that on its face, just that doesn't make sense. You know, like I'm gonna look up while this plays what the delay should be on that distance, but it's a lot to swallow when you really start to look into the technical details of accomplishing this, and then, you know, stuff like this, everything's clean. They supposedly landed on the moon with retrograde thrusters to slow them down, and it's all fine moon dust, right? And then everything is just like spotless. Spotless. Not a speck of dust. Shiny, brand new.
He's running around kidnapping white chicks. You should check it out. 1972 was the last time a human being has been through the Van Allen radiation belt. 1972. That's the last time. There's been only 7 trips ever that human beings have ever gone past 400 miles. Every single space station mission, every space shuttle, every satellite, all of those are inside the protective Van Allen radiation belts, which start at 1,000 miles. They go from 1,000 miles to, depending on who you ask, if you ask NASA, 24,000 miles. If you ask James Van Allen, the guy who discovered it, it's 67,000 miles of intense radiation that's in a gigantic donut band that covers around the Earth. Now, even if you got outside of that band, you have to deal with solar cycles. There's the apex of a 20-year solar cycle was between 1969 and 1972. All the time when these guys were making those missions. Any one of those guys out there in those tiny little aluminum shielded crafts would have been killed instantly during any solar flare.
Why fake it?
Thank you, Carlos. Why not fake it?
You should open with that.
If you look at any of the footage on...
Why fake it? Because we couldn't accomplish it. The Soviets were ahead of us overall. And by faking it, we successfully bankrupted. This is what won the Cold War more than anything else. We bankrupted the Soviet Union because they believed that we did it. And so they poured even more resources because they didn't want to look bad, like they couldn't accomplish the same thing. There's so many reasons to fake this. So many reasons. Not the least of which just being like the practicality of it. Just like, well, we got 2 options. We can either not do this at all, or we can make a movie, you know?
online, it looks ridiculous. It looks stupid. If you look at the videos, it looks ridiculous and dumb. You know why? Because in 1969, nobody anticipated that we were going to have VCRs and the internet. We were going to be able to watch that. They figured out a way to fake it. That's why when Neil Armstrong got back, first of all, he went insane. He went into a deep depression. So did Buzz Aldrin. He became a huge alcoholic. He gave no interviews. Neil Armstrong still to this day will not give interviews. He gave one speech that he gave at the 25th anniversary of the moon landing. And this is what he said in front of America's best honor students. He said, "We have here amongst us America's best and brightest." And the quote was, "You will."
So it only takes about a second and a half for a radio signal to make it to the moon. So that's not really a technical hurdle. I guess they could patch the NASA comms through to a desk phone. That's not something that was impossible to be done in 1969. And it is also very strange that there's no stars. They were claiming that the surface of the moon is bright enough so that just like during the day on Earth you can't see the sky. But the truth is that the atmosphere and diffusion of light inside the water particles in the atmosphere causes a lot of light in our atmosphere to prevent us from seeing. I mean, you get the reflected wavelength of light causing the sky to be blue. But that blue hue also blocks you from being able to see out into the distance, whereas on the moon there's no atmosphere, and I suppose only when you're very close to the surface and your eyeballs are not open because the light is constricting your pupils, maybe your eyes wouldn't be able to pick it up, but like a camera set up looking at the sky with the correct exposure, especially a longer exposure, a stationary tripod setup, I can't wrap my head around why there's no stars in the sky from the moon. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm just an idiot, so that's not a big deal. That's not a technical hurdle that's impossible to overcome. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to me.
Will achieve many great things if you could peel away one of truth's hidden layers. That's a speech this guy gives standing in front of the top honor students of the country. Not, "I went to the moon." He doesn't say that. He gives this cryptic speech. Now, Bill Clinton, in page 100, I think it's 156 of his book, My Life, he gives this story about how when he was a kid, he was working with this carpenter. And this carpenter said, "I don't believe man landed on the moon." It was 3 months after the moon landing. And he said, "I thought that guy was ridiculous." He said, "You know what? I don't believe anything those TV fellows show you." He said, "After 8 years in the White House, I thought maybe that guy was ahead of his time."
Wow.
This is in Bill Clinton's autobiography.
Wow.
This is in his book. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
By the way,
it's impossible today. China wants to go back to the moon. They don't even have a clue how to do it. They're going to try to get there in 2020. America thinks we could possibly go back in 2017. All of the hard data, the telemetry data, 14,000 reels is missing. No one can find it. What the telemetry data is, that's the binary data, the ones and the zeros that show the distance between the command module and the Earth during every step of the way, on the way to the moon and back, which you can't fake. They don't have that. They can't find it. Which you would think would be in a locked golden vault at the Smithsonian. But no, they can't find it. Well, they say, well, they placed laser reflectors on the moon. You could shoot a laser beam. That's proof. Well, it's not proof, because the Russians did it twice with unmanned probes. The Russians also collected space samples and samples of the moon.
Very amazing, and I've had these guys on. And
which guys?
The different guys on the internet that are behind.
There's a lot of guys, and I've debated that one guy, that Phil Plait from Battleship. I clown that guy.
The guy that gets in every astronaut's face.
Well, that guy's a crazy Christian, and he's nuts. Which is, you have to be a little crazy to look that deep into this theory, because it seems so solid. We went to the moon. It seems so solid until you look into it.
But here's the only thing. We can't keep anything quiet in this country.
It doesn't matter. No one's keeping it quiet.
Everybody
you can go look at it.
The astronauts,
This is the stupidest fucking argument. Seriously, like especially if we have alien spacecrafts, people better shut up with that shit. But also, they resealed the JFK files, and nobody's said shit about that. Or people have talked and speculated, but nobody's produced any evidence. And that's the other magical thing, is it's not that people don't say this stuff. It's that you don't have the evidence to back it up, so you only have a certain percentage of the population that is ever going to believe anything unless the government comes out and fucking hands them, the original tapes and sits them down in a room and says, this is the truth. And if the government and the news tells them, then they'll fucking believe it. They'll believe that a turkey came out of their ass while they were sleeping if the news and the government tells them that. they're just hopeless, you know. So it's certain people are just always going to say, "You're full of shit. The government told me we went to the moon. You know, I'm never going to question it."
Those guys are afraid of their lives. Gus Grisham, the pilot who was the guy who died on the launch pad along with two of his friends, he was a public critic of NASA. He put a lemon, he hung it on the simulator, put a lemon and put it on a hanger and hung it. He was dead in that same cockpit. He died like 2 weeks later. He burned to death inside of that. They were terrified. This is a matter of life and death. These guys were in the middle of a huge Cold War between Russia, and they wanted to show that America had technological superiority. The race to the moon landing, all that stuff is not about going to the moon and collecting things. It's about military superiority. It's about the ability to do things with military technology. All that stuff they use for NASA, all the stuff they use for the stealth bomber, the space shuttle, all those missions, it's not for philanthropy missions. That's to fuel the military-industrial complex. The machine behind this is all the military. And getting to the moon.
So the space shuttle should use chemical propulsion of some type, and it should emit compressed gas. A boat uses a propeller, submarine uses a propeller, airplane uses a more complex propeller, which is a turbine that compresses it and shoots it out the back. They used to use propellers as well, but in a vacuum, you have to expel matter to propel yourself forward. So that's supposedly how the space shuttle works.
First is making a statement that we have military technological superiority over Russia, and that's what they did. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
Neil Tyson, thank you very much for coming on here, man. This is an honor. This is a blast.
I hope that that's the end of that clip, because whoever set up his audio for that interview did a fucking terrible job. Just clipping all over the place. It's very difficult to listen to, and I apologize. I tried to turn it down as best I could so it wasn't as horrible as it really was.
I think the universe is going to explode. You are, for sure, the most requested podcast guest ever in the history of this podcast. So Brian and I have been doing this for 3 years, and we have come full cycle with your appearance here today.
Right.
Like you're very important. I don't know if you know how important, like, the cool guy scientist is.
I can't tell you how many
very
times.
important.
No, so I have evidence of how important that is.
You know, I think one of the cool things about you and your approach to science is I think it's very refreshing that if someone doesn't know something, you're not condescending about it. You're very enthusiastic about distributing the information, but you're not casting a judgment while you do that. And that is something that I think has freaked a lot of people out about really intelligent people or scientists or someone who talks about anything where they have no experience. There's a sort of a condescending, sort of a carrying of that knowledge that you don't have.
Now, you were a moon guy for a while, right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
well, listen, my issues with not believing that people went on the moon, a lot of it had to do with a friend who had an uncle who worked at Rocketdyne. This guy was convinced that there was no way to do it. He was an engineer, and he said they were so far away from doing it that the fact that they did it, and they did it 7 times, but since looking at it, the weight of all the evidence, I reserve the possibility that some things were horseshit based on a lot of photographic evidence that they did fuck with.
Well, here's
like
the thing.
Gemini photos.
Yeah, but here it is. Here it is. If you look at, like, the fuel that was loaded up into the Saturn V rocket, you can calculate where that fuel could take that rocket. It's to the moon and back. So they're not going to the Piggly Wiggly, right?
Yeah.
In the Saturn V.
No, I'm a retard. Listen, if anybody has any real sense, they would look at it and say, "There's no way that was a hoax. There's no way. There's no way that was a hoax. There's no way."
There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
See? Honestly, moon landing shit, was it real? Was it not? It was not in the back of my mind.
Yeah, it wasn't in mine,
No,
but I forgot that
Hammer-
Russell's a moon guy. Look, I've
fucking moon
argued
guy.
with people, and I absolutely don't know. I don't know. I don't believe.
Joe, you were totally down for you were the moon hoax crusader. Something.
No.
What happened? What happened?
Listen,
Joe, you were totally down for you were the moon hoax crusader. Something.
No.
What happened? What
Listen,
happened?
man. Here's my issue. My issue is how can I even argue it? But
I'm crazy.
You chase your tail with this shit, man.
No, I'm not. I'm having fun.
He
It's
loves it.
entertaining.
Do you really love it?
He loves it.
Figuring out how we're being bullshitted is very.
But that's
I'm
the thing.
obsessed with it. How are they bullshitting us? I love that.
See,
shit.
I like that.
I love that.
I like that Eddie's
I
like
don't
this.
like
I
just
think
wanna-
you need people like this. Like
Yes.
he loves it. Like he loves it.
I think this is how crazy I am. I think we're being lied to about fucking everything.
Your kid's gonna grow up just
I'm
super
crazy.
skeptical of
Fuck
everything.
yeah. I'm already
With a
telling him
tight rear
don't.
naked
I'm already
choke.
telling him
Just-
don't trust anything you see on TV.
No.
We don't let him
Why
watch
let him watch TV?
We let him watch a little cartoons here and there, a little bit.
SpongeBob's corrupt as fuck.
But I'm going to raise him not trusting TV. You know. I don't give a fuck what anybody
listen,
says. And you can't say nobody would ever disagree with that. The TV is not good for kids.
Whatever you want,
Why
baby.
It's
don't
not
you
good
have,
for kids.
Why don't you have a show on the Alex Jones channel? What has happened?
I agree.
You
What
went
the
there.
fuck?
You went there.
I went
you
a
met
total
with him.
retard on him. I went full flat earth on him.
Even he doesn't believe in flat Earth.
No. Most conspiracy theorists, do not. They think flat Earth is the most retarded thing ever. When Joe first brought it up, like about a year and a half ago, he said, "Dude," he was trying to basically say how stupid people are. He said, "Do you know people still believe the Earth is flat and the sun is 3,000 miles away?" And I remember sitting there thinking, "Shit, what are they, Amish or something? Like, how dumb do you have to be
Yeah, you'd be
to think the
Five
world is
YouTube
flat?"
videos later.
How dumb?
Yeah, one
no,
fucking
and then you
red
brought it up
serpent.
again, and then you
Go
brought it up
full.
again. You brought it up again, like maybe 6 months later, and I said on your podcast, I said that is so dumb. That's got to be some kind of CIA psyop. It's
So
got to
where
be
the
some
fuck
kind of
did you
disruption.
take a weird left turn?
And then I was in class, and we were talking about conspiracy theories, and my buddy Manny, full blown conspiracy theories.
Jiu-jitsu class.
He goes, do you ever my jiu-jitsu class? He goes, we're talking about my YouTube class.
I thought it was a conspiracy class.
No.
I was like, God, you go to school?
Teaches.
I teach.
No, I know that. I thought he meant like a straight class.
conspiracy. Open
I
your
teach
eyes.
people how to
Look
kill,
out the
Brendan.
door.
I'm
there
very
you
aware,
go.
brother.
Also, so Manny turns to me and goes, "Dude, you ever look into flat Earth?" This was like 8 months ago or something. And I said, right when he said that,
Manny, you ever look into astronomy?
yeah, right when he said that,
Manny, did you miss fourth grade?
right when he said that,
Manny, anybody drop you on your head?
Manny, what are you smoking?
I can't believe anything that ever comes out of his mouth again.
That's
what I
correct-
thought.
that's the
I'm
correct
like,
way
Jesus.
to
And
handle
I'm
it.
like,
You saw
I'm
the
like,
light,
Manny,
Eddie.
please don't ever bring that shit up again. You keep that shit, dude.
Cut to.
Dude, that's a
We're
CIA
getting dramatic.
psyop.
I sense the turn.
I
So
get
And
it.
then another
now-
guy comes. I'm telling you the story, and then
okay.
Ernest comes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, you ever look into flat Earth?" I said, "Dude, Jesus goddamn Christ."
Okay,
I go,
so
that's
when
the
did it
dumbest shit.
turn?
And he goes, "Hey man, I got a master's in engineering. Look into it." And I just wanted to go. I just went home and I was just gonna
How about
give him
looking at what fucking school that was so we
Yeah.
can tell people?
Phoenix
But,
Online. or some
but
shit.
hey man,
That's the same shit.
Yeah.
I'm so crazy. I so don't believe anything.
You want something else to do.
Yeah, I tried to debunk it. I was trying to debunk it. I was Mr. Debunker.
There's a fucking Japanese satellite that takes a photo from 22,000
Those are
miles
the
out
worst
every 10
pictures
minutes.
ever. Come on,
Oh,
those
really?
Japanese
It
Pull up-
doesn't
pull
show
up
that
those
it's
pictures.
flat, though, even if the pixel
Young
is all
Jamie,
fucked
pull
up.
up those pictures. It does
Those
not the worst
Japanese-
pictures.
put up those
Eddie,
Japanese
it's
pictures.
from 22,000 miles away.
I can't believe you believe those pictures.
Do you remember when you had a flip
pictures,
phone?
man. I can't
You remember when
believe
you had a
it.
flip phone, dude, and you had the front-facing cameras were always dog shit.
Always.
And the back-facing one was pretty legit.
They're all, yeah, that's how it works, man.
22,000 miles away. It's hard to take a good
Fake
iPhone
pictures.
7.
You don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw
Have
it
you
on
looked into
television.
Oh, you're a genius. Oh, beep that. Hit
Okay,
that.
we'll bleep it. We'll bleep it. No, it's okay. We got
That's
it.
genius. You saw it on TV? That's awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you.
It doesn't
Pull
show
up
that
those
it's...
miles away. It's a hard to take. Wait a minute, Eddie.
That's
This
what I'm saying. We don't
Japanese
know what we're on.
satellite. This Japanese
Look into
satellite.
it.
Hold on, Eddie. This Japanese satellite that all these hundreds of scientists worked on for
Fake
like
NASA.
a decade.
They fake moon
shoot it out
landings.
into the space.
They
They
fake
take
the moon
a
landings.
picture every 10 minutes, and you can download it from the website.
Oh, man. I mean, it's all really interesting and fun. I'm not gonna.
All I'm saying is, when I look at all of it, when I look at the photograph.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I've kind of read the Admiral Byrd stuff about the Arctic and some of the weird stuff that he claims. I don't think the Earth is flat. I've worked on ships. I've seen the curvature of the Earth from the bridge of a ship. You know, you're 100 feet off the water, the ship's 100 feet off the water, horizon, visible horizon is about 20 miles on most days. So you can see that 20-mile distance, and you can see the hull rise up over the horizon. And you don't get this perspective to see that clearly when you're on a small vessel down close to the water. But when you're in the middle of the Pacific, when you're 120 feet up in the air or thereabouts, and you can see things come over the horizon, you can see the masts of a smaller boat come over, and then the rest of it pops up. And so I don't believe the Earth is flat. Not only that, all cosmic bodies are round, and that's how gravity would work. Is like a black hole is a singularity, so you have a single pinpoint of gravity that has the mass of a sun or vastly more, and so it would make sense that as a ball of molten whatever kind of congeals and solidifies, it would form a globe. You take a drop of water in the space station, and the surface tension of it turns it into a blob of water. Yeah, just that part makes sense to me. The flat Earth thing, I don't get it. But the moon landing, yeah, I get that part. I get the questions. I get the skepticism about the technical ability during that time. We didn't even have. I don't even think we had nuclear subs really figured out at that point. Nautilus 52. So we did have it. But the technology that you're using to go down in the ocean and to go in space, pretty similar. You need sealed environments to keep people alive. So I don't know. It's just a huge undertaking, and that radiation belt is a huge obstacle that even now I'm not sure if they're confident that they can send people through that and keep them alive. So that's one of my biggest things. Look at the footage, listen to people talk about it, but if we can't do it again in 2 years, I think the debate's over. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll talk to you again soon.